Haruna Madanga. Please a round of applause as he comes forward. So my topic is the effect of drug and substance abuse. So we're going to concentrate more on the negative effect and how we can actually solve that effect and teach people how to prevent themselves from drug and substance abuse. First of all, I'm going to start with a little scenario about a real life event that has happened to me. I've been fortunate enough to work with a couple of NGOs where I worked as the interviewer for what we call the PWITs, that is people who inject drugs. So this topic coming to my own place is actually a beautiful thing for me to express what we found. And then the research was definitely, it was in Jalingo, in all the local governments within Jalingo. It is actually something. That was my first experience, going to meet people who actually inject or take drugs. And then you go to them and then you know that you have to dress like them. You go and then you sit down. And me too, I am them. Because my name is Chama Anatari. So whenever we go there, some people know me already. When we go there, Anatari, and then I will also shake them. We go with our short knickers and then we shake their hands and we sit down with Jesus. We ask them what is happening and why they do take illicit drugs. And then they will tell you that some of them started from taking these drugs for them to what? Learn how to be strong to walk. Because sometimes they get tired walking, so they take it to boost them, to energize them to walk better. Some people will tell you that they started because they felt like when they take it, they used to forget their troubles and problems, so it got used to them. Some people it's because of family issues or relationship issues. Women do take it too in several aspects, and so I was fortunate to sit with them and ask them several questions, and then this was part of their reasons for taking it. And then one thing I've actually noticed about these people is that most times when they sit down and they don't have this drug, that is where the problem happens. And that is where it becomes an addiction, because they will do anything to try and get this drug and take it so that they will forget about their problems. But what is this drugs and illicit substance? It is the excessive use of what? Psychosocial drugs such as alcohol, pain relief, and illegal drugs. When we talk about alcohol, we talk about all the drinks that we used to take, but then we take them excessively and it becomes part of our body that even if we don't take it or whenever we don't take it, we feel our body doing us something that it urges us to even go and steal or fight to get it. When we talk about pain relief, we talk about all the tramols, all the panadols that people actually take. You see somebody, one person taking like a whole pack of panadol himself, so you know what it actually does to the body. And then some of the drugs that people take that are illegal are those drugs like cocaines, heroines, and all sort of things that are not allowed to be taken within the society. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that there are bad things that happen when people take excessive drugs and are addicted to them. And what are these negative effects of these drugs? That is what I'm going to ponder on. The first one is isolation. Isolation. I feel like we have a mixture of crowd whereby some people actually don't speak English, so that we are mixing it with Hausa relatively. Isolation. People who are addicted to drugs are always or most often isolated because they take these drugs and it makes them so weak that they want to stay alone and they don't want to be what? Seen as people who are bad within the society. So they isolate themselves. And sometimes it's not within themselves, but it is the effect of the drugs they are taking that makes them feel the need to isolate themselves out of people. Secondly, stagnation. The excessive intake of drugs or illegal drugs makes people stagnant in their way of life, both in their careers, in their nature of doing things, in their jobs, in their families, in their incomes, in their businesses and everything. It makes them stagnant. Because when you take drugs, the only thing you always want to do when you wake up is how to get that money. I remember one person telling me about, during the interview, that the only thing he wants to do every single day is not even to take food. He wants to see that he has the money for him to be able to afford his own drugs. One man did something. He bought a whole pack, a whole cooler of moi moi. When he brought it, he urged the people that were taking drugs that anybody that can eat 2 of these normal is going to give the person money. To my greatest surprise, majority of them could not even eat 2. Because what? Their tummy has already changed. They can only take the drugs and then they can only eat little food. That is why majority of the people taking drugs, you see them very, very slim and a bit skinny. The next thing is damaged relationship. Shy of drugs and other illicit things have caused a lot of damaged relationship, both within us and our and our religion. Most times our religion prohibits or stops us from taking drugs. And when we do them excessively, it actually gives us barriers and distance. So whatever we're being told not to do, we'll still do it. In our houses too, we have problems. For example, I remember my cousin who has passed away now. One of the most gifted human beings I know in my life. He could actually do almost everything. I saw him like somebody who was gifted in every scenario. But the only problem he had that everybody was judging him was the fact that he often take drugs. And the problem was that even if you tell him not to, if you enter the bathroom after him, you're going to go and notice something. You either notice that it is actually smelling of what? Smoke, or you're going to see particles of pills on the ground. But because we were young then, we call it solidarity. We often see it and we just hide it so that our parents don't see. But as big as he was older, he always used to fight my mom and every other person because when they see it, they do fight. So you see, it has damaged their relationship in the sense that whenever we're going out to go and do things outside, instead of him being the trusted one, being the elder one, they give it to the youngest person he's going out with. Imagine you're going to buy drinks or buy something that has been sent from home and then they're giving it to a younger person to hold instead of you who is the older one because they don't trust him with anything that's with money or thinking right because of the use of what? Drugs. So this has caused a lot of family relationship issues between him and what? His own family. The next one is financial distress. The illicit intake of drugs and the excessive abuse of drugs has caused a lot of people to go into financial distress. In the sense that I just gave you an example of one of the people who were interviewing. He was telling us that every money he gets, the first thing he thinks about is what? Drugs. Because his body itches. Imagine waking up early in the morning and don't even think about your life, food to eat, your family, your children, the people you're supposed to help, people that are looking up to you, and then the first thing you want to do is kana so ka nema drugs. Abunda zaka shaya saka ka feeling kamanta da abubuwan duniya. Sometimes some people say they take drugs to slow their what? To slow their life. Rayuwa na sauri sosai in sun shaya na dan ragewa. So there are things we need to do. The next one is health problems. A lot of health challenges are being caused from the take of what? Drugs. And then as my auntie rightly said now, the issue of rape and other things are caused because of drugs. Because majority of these people are being raped. Because one time we were traveling with one of my auntie who was a nurse, told me something about the issue of rape and then it actually broke my heart. There was an 8-year-old girl who was actually raped. She was raped by somebody who is actually me pascari. So imagine how excessive and strong he is on an 8-year-old girl. And then the problem is that he confessed that it was not his fault. It was because he took a lot of drugs and then the process of doing the pascari and then she came and then things happened and then he raped her. Somebody just gave an example of the only problem is that an 8-year-old can find it very difficult to hold Gwewa because he's not strong enough to hold him. So imagine him raping her. And the worst part is that, do you know the health challenges that came after? She was infected with all the infections of the entire world in her body. And I can't even start naming them. And then my auntie came, she was telling me, I was just driving and I started crying. She said, well, I said, if you will tell me where he is, me and Chama and Atari, I'll go and fight him. But thank God for this program. It's teaching us not to just fight, it's to sensitize people and teach them the ways to prevent what? The illicit intake of drugs and what? Rape. And then we are going there. The next one is criminal record. If you go to where criminals are, majority of them will actually tell you they take drugs. Because if you don't take drugs, in your right thinking sense and mind, it will not boost you to want to go and do anything bad. So these drugs make you makes you forget your mind and try to do things differently. And then this as a result of drugs. Next one, which is the ultimate one, is death. Illicit intake of drugs or drug abuse itself leads to what? Death. Because at the end of the day, if you're a criminal, you're going to be caught. And if you're not lucky, maybe you are going to even be shot. If you are actually taking drugs, it can lead to what? Health challenges and problems that will lead you to what? Die at the end of the day. When you are financially distressed, tomorrow any small sickness or any problem that comes, hypertension will beat you and it will hit you and you will die still. If you're actually isolating yourself from the entire world, you're going to feel bad. And the majority of cases of what? Suicide and other things that leads to what? Death as a result of that. So you see, drug abuse or illicit intake of drugs leads to what? At the end of the day, death. So all of these things are interconnected. But then the thing is that how do we prevent the use of what? Drugs? The major reason, or the biggest one I'm going to state, is what? Sensitization programs and campaign like this, where young people who are 40% youth in Nigeria are actually being associated with illicit intake of drugs. Like majority of the people that actually take drugs are actually youth. Women are on the low percentage, but it is very, very important that we cope that society, because women are actually the growing area where whenever you lay down things, it actually goes better. For example, even if you go to schools, women are on the high rise. Even if you go to places of business, women are on the high rise. So now on the aspect of sensitization, it is good that we involve women so that they are educated enough to teach these young people that are actually doing things that are bad to actually be better. The next one is identify the source of the drugs. Majority of these drugs are being gotten from illegal sources. So if these sources can be identified and be coped, then it's going to stop the illicit intake of drugs. Avoid temptation and peer pressure. This is what we're supposed to teach ourselves, women and youth. There are a lot of temptation that comes with what? The use of alcohol and drugs, and mostly is from the influence of what we call peer pressure. So we should learn to start teaching our younger ones from small that some things are actually going to come their way, but they should actually learn to prevent it, because it's not going to do them any good. Teach them about the dangers of what? Illicit intake of drugs. Next one is seek help for mental health. This is very important. We have a lot of mental health issues that people don't know how to voice it out. A lot of people are going under depression and other things that are disturbing them, but they don't have people to talk to. So we should learn as women to open up and ask our children or our youth, what is wrong with you? Do you have any problem? Is there anything worrying you? But in our houses, sometimes some of you, our mothers, are seated here. If you see your son quietly, hey, what is wrong with you? He will tell you, buy a gin daddy or something. Back a gin daddy, learn to ask them of their own personal problems, because people are going under a lot of problems. The next one and the final one is the sensitization programs and campaigns. I want to appreciate this particular convener and the program entirely. You're actually doing a lot in helping our youths find who themselves. I want to say I'm very grateful for giving the opportunity to actually speak on this particular topic. And I urge and I pray that Jalingo and Taraba entirely and Nigeria and the world is going to be a better place. And then the use of illicit drug is going to actually go to a barest minimum. Thank you very much.
Taraba State University.